It's likely that you had to go through what you went through to be where you are today. And even if you didn't have to go through what you went through, it happened. And you cannot change the position where you are right now. You can change where you're going to go in the future. From this point forward, you can change how your life happens. Just because you ended up somewhere doesn't mean you have to see it through to the end, you know? But it's definitely true that it's likely that this had to happen in order for you to realize something new, in order to learn a lesson from a mistake, or to change your behavior, whatever it is. Because usually someone can tell us a lesson, but we don't put it into practice unless we actually feel the sting of pain. An example of this, my buddy Tyler, he's really good at sales. One of the best sales guys that I know. And because that's the company that he runs. He sells shoes for a living, right? And so I was asking his advice on a negotiation that I was doing for my woodworking company. And he was telling me like the things that you shouldn't do in a negotiation. This was the day before I did this negotiation with this client of mine, right? He's like, do not tell them your price. Do not give them an anchor, or like don't split the difference with them. Like all these big things that you hear all the time. But this specific example, he told me like, just don't reveal things on your side, right? You want to say as little as possible and let them say everything else. Let them do the talking. And I made the mistake of not doing that. So we get to the negotiation. I'm on the phone call. It's like 30 minutes long. And this is the thing that I messed up. He told me, a couple days earlier, I had told him that the client I was talking with asked me to pull down my price, and blindly I agreed to it. But then once I started looking into it, I realized that the amount that I pulled my price down was a good 10 or 15%. He just gave me a dollar amount, and I said yes. And I should have looked at it. And over the whole contract, it was over $1,000. I was like, holy cow, that's a lot of money. And I don't want to just say yes to that blindly without looking into it. It was my mistake, but I wanted to bring it up to the guy. Now I told Tyler this, and he said, you shouldn't bring it up. You said yes, you agreed to it, and if you bring it up, your emotions will get the best of you, and you'll say something you didn't mean to say, and you'll lose the negotiation. The guy has the cards in his favor. You kind of just have to take the loss on this one. And I was like, okay, I'll take the loss on this one, but I still want to let him know how I feel. That way in the future it doesn't happen again. And Tyler was like, it's a bad idea, but you go ahead, whatever you want to do. I should have listened to him. So I get into the negotiation. We're talking. I tell him, hey, by the way, I didn't like how this went down. I'm not going to come down on my price, all these different things. And then the guy felt confronted over the phone call. And he's like, oh, that's how the business is run, this, that, and the other. You think that you're so different than everyone else, all these different things. And it kind of not frightened me, but just got me off guard. And I was like, I shouldn't have said that. And I was trying to backtrack, and my emotions got the best of me. It was not a good situation. So all that is to say, it's very likely that I had to go through that circumstance in order to feel the pain, that sting of, man, I was wrong, and it actually mattered, in order to learn the lesson instead of just being told by someone who had already known the lesson. There's a quote, I think it's by Nietzsche. It's by someone, you can look it up, but, I just forgot it. wait, what is it? Oh, beware of unearned wisdom, right? That applies right here. That applies to any of the videos that you're watching. Anytime that you just consume tons of content, that's unearned wisdom, and it won't serve you in the long run. It's like that, I don't know, it's just the free dopamine. That's what I call it, right? So we don't want any free dopamine. So take stock and realize where you are right now. Write out a story of exactly what happened in the past. So what are all the decisions that have led to where you are today? The wrong decisions, the mistakes you've made, and this is going to take putting your pride down and some humility in order to understand fully what it is you did wrong in the past. A couple of times ago, I said a quote, and I really liked it. And I'm going to say this all the time. The humility to admit unlocks the ability to achieve. So when you have the humility to admit that you were wrong in the past, that you're wrong today, or that you have caused the circumstances that you're in, you unlock the ability to achieve whatever it is that you want, right? And so I am the one who got me to where I am today. Even if outside circumstances have been put on me, I could not change those. You cannot change the outside circumstances, so you cannot blame the outside circumstances, because that would have happened anyway, right? In any lifetime, there would be circumstances put on you that couldn't have been different. And if they would have been different, they, either it wouldn't have affected you that much, or it wouldn't have been necessary to go through them. So because they were put on you, these circumstances, think of them as necessary components to your uniqueness, your story. The company that I work with, or this nonprofit, it's called Whisper. And our whole goal is to start community in high schools, right? That's the main goal, just to boil it up in 5 words. So to start community not in high schools. It's 6 words, whatever. Anyways, I created this acronym for STORY, right? And I really like it. So what is the STORY acronym? It's, what are your struggles and your triumphs? What is the outline of all those things? So all the struggles you faced in your life, the biggest ones, the small ones, whatever it is. Same thing with triumphs. And just do like 3 to 5 for each. Put them into an outline, so how they occurred over time. What were the realizations that you took from those things? So from this lesson, I learned blank. After going through this, I will never again blank. Those types of responses, right? And then after you do the realizations, all together, that is like a bunch of bullet points basically on a map. So do it like this. When you put it in an outline, rank them like 1 to 10. So, the time that I broke my arm, that was really painful. I couldn't write for 7 months, whatever it was. That was probably a 9 out of 10. The time that I lost my dad, and that was very difficult, right? That's a 10 out of 10. The time that I fell off the penny farthing, that was very painful, but probably like a 7 out of 10. And those are 3 of mine, right? For triumphs, the time that, I got into college, that was really great. I would say like that's a 6 out of 10, right? Or maybe 7 out of 10. Man, I should know these wins. The time I got the Chipotle sponsorship, that was probably like an 8 out of 10. When we did the 50 states road trip, that was probably a 9 out of 10. So like I put a number next to all the things, right? Okay, next I put a timeline. So when did all these things happen? Just put a date next to each one of them. So this first one in struggle category happened blank. Okay, after you do that with all of them, so you have a score and you have a time, write a little, a quadrant of like a little chart. And on this line, that's going to be the pain symbol. And on this line, that's going to be the time frame, starting at 0 going on to today, right? So when you're born to now. And so then plot these points up and down, and then connect the dots. And what's crazy is that it makes a mountain. It makes like a mountain range, right? And so you can think of it like this. The story of your life is the same as the map of a mountain range. It's a whole journey to get through this mountain range. It's very difficult. You have a bunch of peaks. You have a bunch of valleys. Looking at it from afar is a map. It's a realization. That is the map of your life. That is your life story, if you will. And so it's so cool that it makes like that mountain range, because, mountains are difficult to climb. And Mount Everest is the best, the highest possible physical achievement that is known to man, right? That I know of. Maybe like fasting for 180 days is right above it, but you get my point. So the cool part is now you have this story, and you had the humility to admit when you were wrong, or to search back on your soul and write down the really painful things, right? And actually recognize how painful they were. You also had the evaluated experience to add value to all those different things that happened to you, and the grief that goes along with both reliving the wins and the losses, because grieving is just coming to terms with. I think that's a good way to say it. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but that's how I would say it at least. And so you have this mental map, this mental story. Then you get to see from the looking back on it, was it necessary that I went through this circumstance to be where I am today? Both either a win or a loss, right? If a win was not necessary, then maybe in the future you should try to only aim for wins that were necessary or that will move you along the path you want to move forward on. So that's the whole quote of, I'd rather fail at the things I love doing than succeed at the ones that I don't, or whatever that quote is. You want to have stacked actions that lead to like a domino effect. So imagine like a domino that's this tall, the next one's this tall, and so forth, all the way down. That's how you want to set up your life. And when you look backwards, imagine like 3 dominoes in a row. But okay, this is going to take a lot of conceptualizing. The dominoes are not in a line; they're like slightly off plane. So if you looked at it from one side, then it's like it looks like they're 1, 2, 3 in a line, right? But you look at it from this angle, 90 degrees versus 180 degrees, looking onto it, if that makes sense, then you can see that they're not aligned. You've got the small one here, medium, this one. So from this angle, you're like, oh, well, if I push this, all 3 will fall in a row, right? But that's not the case. You push that first one and it doesn't hit the second. It doesn't hit the third, right? Okay, that's something I'll develop in another talk, but over here, you want to see the successes, ask if they're necessary, and see which ones are necessary in the future. Then on this side, you want to see the losses and say which one of these were necessary, and even if they weren't necessary, how have they shaped who I am today? What realizations can I draw from them, and what have I learned? Was it necessary that I went through this to learn this lesson, right? Like that sting of the negotiation for me. And so I have a note on my wall now. It says, in negotiation, never share. Honestly, let me show you it real quick. Negotiation. Never say the specifics on your cost. Don't call if you don't have to. Don't give them any leverage. Never ask to see their books. That's another one that Tyler, oh man, he had a field day. I called him and I told him, I was like, dude, I asked him if I could see how much because I didn't want him to upcharge on my tables. He's like, you asked to see his books? He's like, brother, you messed up bad. But hey, for the rest of the time, I will have that lesson. So I could view it as a sting to my, to my pride. I'm never going to let that happen to me again. No one's ever going to screw me over, right? That's not how I see it. I see it as, okay, I lost this negotiation for a couple $1,000, right? It was like, no, for $1,000. So that's $1,000 lesson that I have for the rest of the time, but I'm glad I learned it today because I know I'll be worth $100 million one day. And imagine if I had to learn that lesson then, which wouldn't be the case because at that time I would have gone through several of these leading up to that point. But you see what I mean? When you put things into perspective, you understand that the $1,000 problem of today is nothing in the future. And at the end of your life, looking back on everything, that's how you're going to view it. So why wouldn't you start viewing it like that today, right? Dude, I've been firing today. I have been firing on this one. This is probably my favorite of the 33 videos that I've recorded on this channel so far. I love this. So take the time and actually go through that story acronym. Write out the story of your life. I'll do the same because I haven't even done it yet. That's the funny part. I develop the content. I come up with the questions. Sometimes I don't even answer them or do the content itself. So I'll go out and do that on this one because it's huge. It's massive. It changes your life. When you know who you are, you can carry yourself in a different light moving forward, and it changes everything. Your story changes everything. The story we tell ourselves about who we are changes everything. It's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful life. You can do whatever you want to in this life. You just have to know what it is. You got to know how to get there, and then you got to go do it. And that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of planning, and that takes a lot of humility. So let's go do this.